In the last so-called normal crazy people video, I was talking about a particularly extreme example of the stories we tell others that we end up telling ourselves and that we end up believing of ourselves. But it seems to be part and parcel of normal everyday life that we embellish little stories, embellish the facts to make ourselves feel a little more important, or perhaps just appear to be a little more interesting. I was talking with a client a couple of weeks ago about this particular phenomenon. He made the point to me that isn't it amazing the way lads who are out for the night will always compete with each other as to who left last, who went to bed last, who was last home. And if somebody left at 1 o'clock, the person who left at 1:10 will say, well, I didn't leave till 2:30. In exactly the same way as lads out for the night, and maybe this is a particularly Irish thing, lads out for the night will actually boast about the number of pints they have consumed, when we all know that pints literally kill your neural cells. It doesn't stop most people doing it, but you see the point I'm making. We all, even if I had 6 pints, I would add another couple for good measure in embellishing the story afterwards. There's a guy across the road here who has no good reason to embellish little facts about his life, but he tells me, for example, that he gets up every morning for a coffee with his mates at 5 o'clock. Now, the French are early risers, and there are a couple of cafes around here where you will find people drinking coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning, but he ain't one of them, because I get up between 6 o'clock and 6:15 most mornings, and he's only driving out at about 6:30. For some reason, it makes him feel better about himself, perhaps more important in his own little life, that he should tell everybody that he gets up at 5 o'clock every morning. There's another particular individual that is a little more extreme in this regard. He tells all kinds of, in his own words, little fibs to make himself sound more interesting. A couple of years ago he was talking to my wife, and he told this story about how he had been out with a particular woman of our mutual acquaintance, and this particular woman had golloped all me chips. That's what he said, golloped all me chips. Now in English that means she wolfed down all my French fries. Golloped all his chips and left him with nothing to eat when they went out for the meal. My wife Lisa was talking to this lady a couple of weeks later, and she said, I believe you golloped down all Kevin's chips. She said, I don't know what Kevin is talking about, for the simple reason that I only met him for a drink. I'm on a diet at the moment. Lisa went back to Kevin and she said, I believe there were no chips involved at all in this particular evening. And he said, oh, you didn't mention that to Mary, did you? He said, she only made that up to make the evening sound more interesting, you know. Now that in itself is minor. But when you consider what is going on in people's minds and in people's everyday lives, whereby they have to embellish the stories in their own minds, they feel they have to embellish these stories because it makes them feel more important, more interesting, more whatever. Why? Because unfortunately, as normal crazy people, we all feel a little less important and a little less interesting than we really, really could be if we woke up, smelled the roses, and start living our lives to the full.